All right, now we're doing P4, and P4 says to explain how to meet own specific personal and professional development goals while on work experience. So again, this was obtained from the assignment brief. That's the P4 criteria itself. And here, just a bit more detail on what needs to be done. It says a reflection on your own strengths and areas for improvement, your own specific personal and your own specific personal and professional development goals, and how to meet them during your engineering work experience placement. This was from the spec, so this is what I'm going to focus on mainly. Again, this isn't very descriptive on what needs to be done, whereas this gives us an idea, bullet pointed, on what we should do. So the first thing I've said is some of the points can be done together. 1, 2, and smart targets, I think, should just be one massive thing rather than having them as separate things. Maybe you can have them as separate paragraphs, that's fine. So when it says reflect on current knowledge and skills, identify own strengths and areas for improvement, and also with smart target, identify smart targets for own work experience, right? So what I think should be done, what I've devised, you speak on some of the knowledge and skills you have going into the type of work experience that you want. So again, these types of work experiences would be very similar. Maybe the only one that might be out of the way would be solutions architect, right? But these two, very similar. So when you've decided on the type of work experiences or the type of work experience that you definitely want, it's good to do that. So if you're one of those students who already has the work experience in the bag and the company has said yes and you've agreed on everything, maybe tailor all the stuff you do to that specific work experience. Now, I'm being realistic here, unlike the examiners. I'm saying if you already have work experience lined up for a computer systems engineer role, make your work, your assignments A and B tailored to computer systems engineer. So all the skills and attributes and professional skills and knowledge that you list, make it tailored to computer systems engineer so that at the end you can come back and say, well, I got the job I wanted, I got the skills I wanted, I got the knowledge I wanted, I got the attributes I wanted. All right. So the first thing I think we should probably do is speak about a skills audit. So I didn't put define it. Ooh, define it. So what is it? That's the first thing. I like defining these things again, so it makes it very clear for anyone reading this what a skills audit is, for example. So find a skills audit template online and make changes so it suits you best. So here's one I found. Okay, I don't need to do that. I think I already have it open somewhere. Here's a skills audit. It's just a massive list of skills that you might have. So what you could do is do skills audit for, and then you maybe say computer systems engineering. So whatever work experience you're going to do, you find a list of skills for that one. So let me remove these two just to make it easier. And then I say skills. Oh, of course I spelled it wrong. And then list all the skills that might be needed. Just list everything, right? And then you do a skills audit to see how well you would be suited to that role. Now, the entire point, I think I have it here. The purpose of a skills audit is to see if there are any gaps. I mean, there most likely will be, but where the gaps are. For example, I can program, I can design a circuit. What I cannot do very, very well is do PCB design. And that's something that's probably not the fundamental, but one of the fundamental things for computer systems engineers. I need to be able to design PCBs very, very, very well. Now, I can use the software to design it. I can draw it on paper. I can use the software to create the circuit diagram, but for me to actually do it myself, not very great on that part, and that's something I need, right? So again, the entire point of a skills audit is to ensure that we can pick out the gaps in the knowledge. This is why I said that these three sections can be joined, because when you're reflecting on current knowledge and skills and identifying own strengths and areas for improvement, this is more or less the same thing. And when you come down to smart targets as well, again, it's more or less the same thing. So what I would say is do the skills audit first. Get a list of all the skills, see how good you are at those skills. Then you're going to find, well, you're going to go through and find your strengths and your weaknesses, and then you're going to reflect on it. So you're going to say, okay, let's say I listed 10 skills. I'm good at 5. So good at 5, bad at 5. I'm going to say I'm good at these 5. I'm fairly competent. I can get these done in my own time. That's the reflection. How good you are at it. You know what needs to be done. Right? Once you know what needs to be done, you can identify areas for improvement. So if I'm bad at 5, I don't need to improve on the 5 that I'm perfect at. I know how to use Microsoft Word perfectly. I can type, I can do all these fancy things, right? I don't need to improve that. What I need to improve is my PCB fabrication skills, where I can actually make a printed circuit board. That's what I need to improve on. So where it says identify own strengths, you've done that. You say you're good at these five, you're bad at these five, and then you need areas for improvement. Again, the five that you're bad at. So focus on the things that you're not so great at, and that's what you say here. Now for the smart targets, it's going to be kind of a tricky one, because it's not going to be perfectly measurable yet. For example, you're not going to have a realistic time to achieve it and all of that stuff, but it's a good idea just to note those down. Here I am with my 10 skills. Let me just go back over this section quite quickly. So again, this is my skills audit, and remember, you can find templates online of what they look like. Just simply Google the term skills audit template and you'll see how it's done. Can you do this? Yes or no, or yes, no, or don't know. If you don't know, just stick to no. Right? So here are my 10 skills. Let's say my first five, let's say I'm really good at these, right? And the last five, I'm not so good at these. I'm going to label these red. Let's do yellow so it's easy to read. So these are the skills I'm good at, skills I'm not good at. Not only have I identified my own strengths and areas for development, but I'm going to reflect, and the reflection is going to be, why am I not so good at these skills, and then how can I improve on these skills? So that's going to be those 2 points covered, right? Now when it comes down to smart targets, look for a smart target template. But before we even get to the template, right, you guys know what I like to do first. But when we get down to smart targets, pause this and read this section here. It's nothing crazy. It's just about going over the professional bodies and why they are important. And until you are fully qualified, it is unlikely that you will be able to join most of these bodies, but still look into them. So if you're a mechanical, I believe it was IMEC or something like that. Yeah, IMEC. I think that's how you say it anyway. What are smart targets? So define every single term that we have. What are smart targets? And then you go through the list of words that are associated with smart targets. Go through everything, make sure that the reader knows exactly what it is about. Here it says we only need to identify. That's what it said in the specs. Let me scroll back up. It says here identifying smart targets, but we're going to do more than that. We need to show ways that we can improve our smart target. So before we start speaking about ways to improve it, we've identified the skills, we've done our skills audit, we know what we're good at, we know what we're not so good at. Before we get into that last part, we're going to speak about what is professional development, right? What are some professional development goals? What are your professional development goals? So these are, what things do you want to develop, right? Now you have these at the top. So the skills that you have at the top, you're going to decide whether they're personal skills or professional skills, right? So remember this, let's say these 5 skills that I had here, and let me just copy them and put them here as well. Let's say from those skills, maybe only the last 2 are, what was this personal development. Only the last 2 are for like personal development. Let me put that to blue, and maybe the first 3 are for professional development, right? What are your personal development goals? So these are the personal ones. And what are your professional development goals? You answer all of these questions first. Maybe this is a nice paragraph, right? And maybe this is a nice paragraph as well. Now, at the end is where I would say you should come and speak about how you plan to develop that skill. So let's say skill 6, let me go up here and cheat because I don't remember all of them. Skill 6 was a personal development goal, right? Or a goal for skill 6 was this: develop communication. So let's just say communication. All right. How do you plan on developing communication? Well, I have a Jamaican accent. I don't think everyone understands me when I speak. I speak really quickly sometimes. I have a stutter. So some of the things that I've done, maybe not so well in these series of videos, is speak slower. All right. Pause. Pause when speaking. Don't just do one massive rant like I do sometimes. Speak slower, pause, stop, and ask if people understand. This is something I do a lot more now. I don't just give a massive speech and then at the end ask people. I stop in the middle. Do you understand? Or you're 100% sure? Can you repeat back to, obviously this would not be appropriate to say to your manager, can you repeat back to me what I said to you? But stop and ask, is that very clear? Is that okay? Do you understand what I'm saying? Communication could be one, right? So you say, what thing needs to be improved? And then you say, how do you intend on improving them? Oh, how do you intend on improving them? Now, ideally, you're supposed to use the smart targets here, but let me do another one first. Let's say my thing number 2 to work on. I took one from personal. Let me take one from professional. Okay, developing competence. Uh, so competence. Let's say welding. I always go back to welding, right? How are you gonna become better at welding? I mean, for me, the best way to become better at welding is to learn more theory, and the easiest one is to weld more things, weld more different types of things. So if at college we're always welding the same thing again and again and again, when you get to the company, ask your manager, your supervisor, listen, I'm not so great at welding, but I really do want to learn. Can you please put me on some projects that require me to weld? No one is going to say no to that. No one's going to say no to somebody who wants to do harder work. That's how I would overcome these. Let's just say we had a nice list of 10 things that we need to improve and we know how to improve it. We need to make these into smart targets. So this is not the easiest way to do it. You should ideally incorporate your smart target here. So what I might do, again, I would replace this. So let me say let's remove all of this first, right? This is the thing I want to improve. So I need to be specific. What needs to be improved? My communication needs to be improved. Measurable. How is it going to be measurable? You're gonna have some metric for before and some metric for after. That's how you measure something, right? You need to have a starting point and an end point. So the starting point could be giving what's that thing called? Giving a speech in front of your colleagues or whatever, right? At first you might not be so great, and at the end you can ask them to give you feedback. So when you just get to the company a couple weeks in, depending on how many hours you're doing, you could just give a mini speech, speak to people in general, and maybe at the end of that first week you give them some feedback sheet and say, can you tell me how my communication was? And at the very end of your work experience, you speak about how do you think my communication has improved? Has it even improved? If it's a yes, it's a yes. If it's a no, it's a no. That's how you measure this one. Not the easiest way to measure that, but it is doable, right? And then we're going to speak about achievable. Now with achievable, we're just simply going to say yes or no, whether you've achieved it or not at the end. Now for achievable, we're simply going to say, can this be achieved? Is it something that is even possible, right? If you said to me, one of the things I need to improve is my jumping out of a plane skill, it's my skydive, I'll be like, no, it's not achievable. It's not going to happen. I'm never, ever, ever going to jump out of a perfectly good plane just because. So for me, that wouldn't be achievable. But for something like communication, yes, 100% achievable, right? Is it realistic? Again, this is very close to achievable. Realistic, 100%. Yes, you can improve your communication skills. You can read. You can do so many things to improve. You can slow down. Can it be time related? Well, for this, it has to be. Reason being, you're going to be on work experience for a specific amount of time. I think for this course, don't quote me on this. I don't remember how much it is. Maybe 350 hours or something like that. So in the time that you started the work experience, your communication skills might not be amazing, but by the time you finish, they should be much better, right? So I would do this for each of the skills that need improving. What was my other one again? I think it was welding, something like that, right? Welding. So how do I improve on my welding skills? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Yes or no, it is achievable. Is it realistic? Yes or no, it's realistic. And the time related, yes, again, based on the amount of time you have at this company, is it possible? Right? So this is typically how I would lay this out. It might not be the best way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying my answers are the only way to do this. This is just how I've interpreted this information here and the spec. And these are like the pointers I've come up with. Now, feel free to pause the video at any time, go back and rewatch this. I highly recommend that if you found it useful. Good luck.